Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Arcane Assist. I'm Rebecca, and I'm recording this week with Evan. I'm playing some more Grimkin, and Evan has brought some minions to the channel this time.
Yeah.
Real departure from our previous recording.
Indeed.
For those of you who don't know or haven't caught our previous video, I used to record under a different name. Came out earlier this year as a trans person. So I've changed name, pronouns, and a lot of the way I'm dressing. And that's part of the reason we took a bit of a break, but we're back in force. If you're excited, let us know. If you're not, then why are you watching this video? So we're going to talk a little bit about the list that we're playing. I'm playing the Wanderer, and the Wanderer's not a caster I have a ton of experience with, but I've really enjoyed him. He's been fun to unlock, especially with the new exciting bump in the night changes. So the list that I'm playing today has it's bump in the night, as I mentioned. It's double Nayslayers with Nayslayer Warhorse attachments, which I really like. My requisition options are 2 Malady Men, and then I also have Baron Tunglick as a requisition choice. I have 2 Madcaps, which are great for spreading the board as wide as far as you can. 2 Clockatrice, a pair of Crabbits, a Skin and Moans, a Glimmer Imp, and a Grave Ghoul, the solo. And Twilight Sisters to add an element of recursion to the list. Things that I really dig about the Wanderer is I think the sort of really far up the board star-crossed presence where you offer the kind of debuffing acceleration is good. He's also a wildly far threat range caster, which makes up a little bit for the fact that he's the Grimkin caster who doesn't really have a damage buff. Anyway, so I'm jazzed for Nayslayers that go for days and excited to give the match a show. What's your list like, Evan?
So today I'm playing Barnabas2 in Will Work for Food. So we've got mostly beasts and stuff, although it's been rejigged so that, as with every Oblivion Force, you have requisition points instead of having to take beasts for your free points, so I can actually take some feat targets in this theme without being hamstrung on free stuff. So, with Barnabas2, I've got his good friend the Soul Slave as a nice little... actually, no, it is a Soul Slave, and his Spell Slave, that's the rule he has. Haha! Isn't a good target for Spell Slave, as well as having Arcane Assist. So...
We're big fans.
Yeah. The battle group has 3 Boneswarms. They're pretty great with him, as he already naturally includes the Gatorman Crockpot, which hands out corpses. He likes corpses. Boneswarms like corpses. And even in this theme, they get overtake on the Boneswarms, which is very helpful for collecting corpses. We've also got a Blackhide Wrastler and a Bull Snapper in this list, which really makes those Boneswarms hit like trucks, because not only are they start at POW 12, they get 3 strength from the corpses if they're maxed out on that. You get plus 3 from rage, that puts them at 18, and if you happen to be positioning correctly, you get Dark Shroud from Barnabas's little bony friends. So that puts them at POW 20. I'm sorry?
Eyebrow raise?
We can go with phrasing. That'll be fine.
Bony friends.
Yeah. So there's 3 lights that are only 7 points. They can hit at POW 20 if they want to, which is pretty sweet. Then we have Dahlia and Scareth. They benefit really well from Starcrossed from Wrong Eye, as well as Execration of Blackest Night and the addition of Swarm. Just good for the defense skew. As previously mentioned, Wrong Eye and Snapjaw for Starcrossed and working really well with Execration of Blackest Night. We're bringing only 1 unit today in the maximum unit of Farrow Bone Grinders. Barney appreciates them as both feat targets, and they have Craft Talisman, which makes Hunter's Mark a far more useful spell, as well as Rebuke being range 12 is really nice. We've got a Gatorman Witch Doctor for Death Ride on the Boneswarms and Barnabas' unit, but not himself. I will forever complain that Barney is not undead or divine manifestation, because why is he neither of those things? One or the other, or both.
I learned that during the course of this game, and I was like, wow, that seems like a weird oversight.
He's a demigod, but it doesn't matter, apparently. Anyways, enough of complaining like that. We've also got Orin Midwinter, because Chain Lightning's sweet, and so is Arcane Vortex. And a bit of an out of left field inclusion, we have the Hermit of Hengehold. Now, at the time of recording this video, the Hermit is not a model that is publicly available, so we will not be using the original model in this recording, we're using a proxy that looks fairly hermity and appropriate for the model. We typically like to use the original model when possible. Not at this time is it possible. That said, we do also enjoy appropriate conversions and good stand-ins when we can. So this particular model that we're using, you may recognize if you've played a little bit of Malifaux. His name is Aeonus. He's this bearded dude with a cloak. He looks like a hermit, and he'll be used for today. Likely, you'll see a different hermit in future videos once we have it publicly available. It might even be by the time this video is recorded, posted, but we wanted to show off the shiny new hermit rules as soon as possible. So,
yeah, I mean, we've got the Oblivion kit pre-ordered, and I think we've got some interest in maybe doing an Oblivion campaign for the channel. So if that's something you'd like to see, let us know. If you don't want to interrupt regular content, then let us know that too. But there's make your purchases, support your local stores, buy the thing when it's available. I think there's no reason not to acquire this particular model, and we will. But it's nice to try out something cool, and I think the Hermit brings a lot of tools for this list, so I'm cool with it.
Yeah. So we have that fun model on the table today. And without further ado, I do believe we're good to get into the game.
Yeah, let's do it. So we rolled off. I won the die roll after a couple of rerolls. We tied a few times and opted to go first. I feel like both Barnabas and the Wanderer are casters who want to occupy a big kind of forward position on the board, can be really unassailable, and they're going to make use of aggressive tools to push Starcrossed right down your face and really sort of skew for their pieces. It's weird, as radically different as our lists are and as far away from each other in terms of factions. There's a lot of comparable components.
Yep.
There's you've got some scary sprays. I've got a couple of good spray vectors. We both have some tidy threat range pieces. You're a little bit more bricky than I am, but neither of us are anything other than trying to deliver a powerful alpha inside a bubble of defense debuffing.
Yeah, all of that seems to check out.
Yeah,
I would say. You may notice we're playing on Anarchy, a scenario we have not featured on the channel before.
Ever before, yeah.
It is exactly as it says on the tin. What is this? Zones 3 inches from the table edge. These flags and objectives. It's a whole new world. But definitely a kind of scenario that casters such as the Wanderer or Barnabas really like, because there's a flag they can just kind of sit on in the middle, and either the enemy has to come to you and you get to kill a thing, or you get to go to the enemy and kill their things.
It is, however, despite that really appealing to a sort of central forward caster brick element of the list, it's super wide. Those 3 inches from the edge of the board really challenge that geometry. So I'm super excited about my list in this scenario, because these madcaps, having learnt from my experience last week, I'm hoping to protect them a little bit better and use them to score those circles. They're amazing units, relatively disposable, and they create contesting models for days.
Yeah. All of that is certainly true. So in my deployment, breaking up pretty hard, got a lot of Boneswarms in the middle. We've got the Blackhide Wrastler sitting near the top side of my deployment. We have pots kind of scattered about, one near the top side of the board as well as one near the bottom side of the board. Dahlia and Scareth are kind of going to be my piece that kind of can contest this bottom zone a little bit. We've got Wrong Eye fairly close to them, as well as the Bone Grinders and a couple of smaller solos and stuff near the top side of the table. Going to hopefully use those to contest that other zone. And then we are going to mostly just try to march down the middle and see what we can do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get to AD these madcaps, and I'm thinking hard about how I want to unpack this. For one thing, I think I want the Wanderer to charge on turn 1 and just expose as much table as possible. So I throw down a Veil of Mists, I cast Fog of War. Fog of War is mostly about costing Evan extra resources when it comes to things like Hunter's Mark or Rebuke. There's not a lot of guns, but there's a lot of kind of magic attacks. So I put Fog of War down, and I put Elusive up for free. I put Veil of Mists down, and Wanderer charges. He actually charges towards Snapjaw, who can draw line of sight to, and because the Wanderer has reach on his stick, he gets to do a more or less linear vector, which is great because I was afraid that Forest would prevent me from having a meaningful target. Next, we throw a Clockatrice up the board, and I decide where I'm going to put the Skinnamones, and we're going to do something cute in a second with it here. But the Malady Man desperate paces the Madcaps, who are just within the 8-inch range, and he presses forward, doing the combat caster thing of running forward. The other Malady Man does the same thing, but into some rubble. More or less irrelevant because he's got a wagon. But I want to leave a spot there for the Nayslayers to run through. And I've placed 2 monkeys within 5 inches of this Grave Ghoul and in melee range of that proxy base, whatever it's going to be in a second. The Grave Ghoul collects corpses from friendly and enemy models that are killed within 5 inches of him. He doesn't say how or why, so the Skinnamones is just going to kill 2 monkeys. He can't collect corpses, the Skinnamones, off friendly models, but he sure can give them to the Grave Ghoul. And the Grave Ghoul can use them for rerolls, friendly or enemy.
There are so many implications about this, but that I am not okay with.
Yeah. So I guess the angry monkey spirit becomes corporeal, manifests an evil dream monster, follows it, cuts it up, and the Grave Ghoul says, I can make use of those parts in my casting bones and being creepy rituals. And everyone's like, that seems great. I don't know why they're like, that seems great. They're obviously disturbed. And then the Malady Man plays another song, and out pops another spirit evil monkey.
That description made none of this better. Just none of it.
Makes me happier, if that helps.
Why, though?
I guess low-key evil, but in a nice way.
What is nice about the monkey dismemberment?
I mean, it's cute.
It's cute.
Yeah. Not the dismemberment, the monkey. The pieces of monkey. Well, anyway. The Nayslayers move up pretty aggressively. They're just running, but they nominated Annoyance and Parry this round. One of the sort of follow the leader games that they can play with their officers. Twilight Sisters, I move them up into sort of 2 flanks. They're in command range of each other, ready to bring back a Nayslayer from either unit. And Madcaps move into the zones, both trying to make use of obstructions to kind of prevent themselves from being removed long term. Well, Evan, what do you think? You've witnessed some horrors, some delights.
So we're looking at the table at these Nayslayers. That threat
markers get placed, I should mention that.
Forever. They go so far if they get beacon off.
So they are speed 9. They have a 2-inch melee on their activation because of the lance rule. Well, on their charge attack at least. They get beacon for plus 2 inches, and then they can be desperate paced by the Malady Men. So they go 15 as a threat.
So my plan is to be fairly conservative here. I'm going to throw up a couple pieces because I can't just concede the entire board. But for the most part, things are just going to stand out of threat range, put up their buffs, and be ready for the scoring turn. So that once that comes, I can be ready to take my flag or, take a zone if I have the means by which to do so. So what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? First off, let's make some corpses of our own by seasoning the spices. No.
Sauce.
Season the sauce.
Season the sauce.
Yeah. So we go up. We only make 1 corpse, which is unfortunate, but whatever. All right. What's next? So, I don't like the Madcaps because the Caskimps are pretty good at killing Dahlia.
They are.
Because they don't make orders or attacks. They just kind of roll and explode, which ignores her entire gimmick.
I feel like Dahlia is at a bar politely drinking a glass of red wine that's been slightly chilled, and she's kind of having a moment where she's thinking to herself, do you chill red wine? And this Cascamp has just had 60 beers, and he just rolls in a barrel into her and just spills it all over her dress.
Awful. Anyways, she moves up with her giant pet snake.
Also, who takes a pet to a bar? Am I right?
Mm-hmm. That's what this is. This is a bar fight. That big water tower you see, actually just booze. That's why all the guys are partying there. Anyways, Hermit moves
for content here.
Hermit moves up behind the wall. He's fairly safe there. Not that cover does a whole lot for Def 11, but being able to only take 1 point of damage per attack is pretty sweet, so he's not feeling too bad about it. We move up with Barney. I'm feeling pretty good about this because even if you want to try and beacon Barney, it won't work because I can just sack pawn to one of my dudes, so you won't get the plus 2 inches of threat on him. So he can actually go up within that 15 and outside of the 13 and be pretty happy about it.
That's pretty cool. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah. Witchdog Croc walks up. He does Death Ride, which gives plus 1 inch of movement to the Boneswarm. This one moves up fairly aggressively, just behind this forest. There's a couple of naysayers that can still see it. However, it will be A-okay here. And then we're going to move up Snapjaw. He's going to stay out of the melee range of the Clockatrice. Still in spray range, though. He'll do some merge just so that he can't be directly assaulted. Same with Wrong Eye. Going to move up. Starcross Submerge. Starcross pretty important to the overall plan here, so we're just kind of going to keep consistent with it. Second pot moves up, generates some corpses of its own, generating 2. Still nothing really to give it to yet. I mean, both that Boneswarm is out of range at the time. It moves up. It's fairly far back. I'm feeling pretty good about where it is, and if the top unit of Nayslayers wants to come in to kill a Boneswarm, I'm more than happy to oblige. Orin walks up, ready to support. Blackhide Wrastler walks up, ready to support. Most of the support pieces are just kind of chilling behind the front line now and just kind of waiting for their turn.
It's kind of an unpacking turn for you, right?
Yeah. We ship it on over, and it's ready to see what you've got in store for turn 2.
So, hashtag options is the theme of this turn. Step 1 is I jump over to one of my road markers. I look at where the road markers are placed. I've kind of placed them a little bit too wide to be able to reave from everything. I'm not used to the 12-inch control, so I'm playing this a little bit wider than I should. I reave from everything by going to the central road marker and just get a couple of extra inches of threat range. The skin amounts in this list is really good for access to Lurker, but Lurker is only good if you can get the Wanderer to the right position with the road markers. So it requires that you play your Wanderer well to make effective use of those pieces. I'm looking at seeing if I can beacon these 2 Boneswarms and then charge them with Nayslayers, kill 2 Boneswarms. I'm aware of the sort of math on how high the POW plus strength of the Boneswarms can get and how kind of nasty they can be. So any pieces that I can relevantly remove at this stage of the game are worth taking off the board. And then I'm going to do the Wanderer thing of just like, here's my army. You're going to collapse into it, and I'm going to have Starcrossed, and I'm going to have tools to make it harder for you to hit things. So deal.
Deal indeed. So currently this road marker is being used as a proxy base as opposed to an actual road marker.
Yeah, I place it down just to see where I maybe want the Wanderer to walk so we can spray and beacon those 2 pieces. I conclude that if he moves to that spot, he's going to block the charge lane for one of the Nayslayers that I care about. So I'm going to move him. He reaves back to full up, keeps Fog of War for free thanks to the Baron. And the Grave Ghoul moves up onto the flag to position for future scoring, and he digs himself in. Just not especially relevant, but it's here. We move the Baron up, and he just parlays. Nothing exciting to do here. I start moving the Wanderer and then think better of it and opt instead to move him forward a little bit into the forest. Just enough into the forest that he can draw line of sight to these 2 Boneswarms, and then he can spray and clip both. Because I decide if he's going to that spot, he's gonna block the lane for the Nayslayers. So there's a little bit of puzzling over this for a second. I think Wanderer placement's actually pretty important in the list, so it's worth spending the extra moment or 2 on. Don't block any lanes. Move the Wanderer up to the right spot. Throw him a lantern at them. Shine a light on them.
This little light of mine.
That's pretty good.
And we're doing no more because YouTube.
Fair enough.
Copyright strike.
So I debate boosting this. Rat 7, their defense 13. So I need 6s. I decide not to because I've got the Grave Ghoul available to force rerolls if I need them. So I don't boost the first one, get it. Do boost the second one. That's the amount of Fury that I've got available. They're both flared and beaconed. I cast Starcrossed. I put up Elusive. So I've got Fog of War, Elusive, and Starcrossed all up. I did drop Veil, but I haven't removed the piece yet because it's just a little bit awkwardly placed. And Wanderer is where he is, and we're ready to charge some things and kill them.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
All of this seems legit.
I don't position the Glimmer Imp spectacularly well here. If I'd been smarter with Baron's placement, I would have been able to run the Glimmer Imp kind of up the middle of the board and tag these 2 Boneswarms to reduce their defense, because I am probably, with at least some of them, going to be in either Execration or Starcrossed. So I'm anxious about hit values, but I'm just going to have to rely on the Nayslayers getting their boosted attack rolls from being cavalry models, and also from them having natively pretty high mat and a -2 defense from the flare. So first Nayslayer makes an impact roll that misses because of Execration, and that's when I decide that there's no point in making impacts. I'm just going to position these guys with their 2-inch reach where I want them to be. I opt for Grievous Wounds with this unit. I probably should have done a little bit more math on the damage expectation, because I'm very likely to kill this Boneswarm, and Grievous Wounds would have been better served as Annoyance, and I make that correction when I activate the next unit of Nayslayers.
Yeah, Boneswarms, while they can hit like trucks, are very glass cannony. They only have 20 boxes, and without corpses, they're only arm 15. So they go down pretty hard. That's why most of this is a defense skew with Starcrossed, Swarm, and Execration. They happen to be def 17 with Starcrossed, assuming you're living. But none of that was up. So this Boneswarm's kind of just going to crumple back into a pile of bones.
I do end up... I activated the Skin and did the same thing, killing 2 monkeys as I did last turn. I do end up using one of the corpses to make a reroll. It doesn't end up going better for me. But the rest of the Nayslayer unit trucks this Boneswarm pretty effectively, and they will now reposition. So the 2 that ran aren't going to reposition, but the Warhorse repositions back. They don't have relentless charge during the reposition, so the guy moves a little bit less than he should have. And I tuck 1 in on Snapjaw. So, with all those things in mind, I've now got some options on the other side of the board, which I'm going to come back to in a moment. We're going to bring that Glimmer Imp that didn't get to come into position as a redundant model scoring the flag, potentially. We are going to advance the Clockatrice, just walking into within 8 inches of Snapjaw. Wasn't in range to charge, so that's okay. Doesn't assault, just boosts it, a spray attack. Doesn't target Snapjaw, who's submerged, instead targets a guy well behind him, but clips him with the spray and is able to boost damage, and does a reasonable chunk. It's dice down 6, I think. It's just 7 points, something like that. And more importantly, paralyzes Snapjaw, so he's sort of stuck a little bit.
Yeah, can't do exciting things like run or charge, but is also def 5, which if you had more attacks on him would be a little bit more worrying. But at the moment, it's mostly just inhibiting my counter punch.
Yep, I'm just trying to use it mostly as a control piece. Speaking of control pieces, this unit of Nayslayers opts to do Annoyance this time. I choose not to do Grievous Wounds. And I've got a couple of them even out of Starcrossed, so I have a total of 3 regular charges and 1 Warhorse charge. I managed to hit with the charge attack that's in Starcrossed, and then the rest of these all also comfortably hit, and the Boneswarm is no more. A couple of them repo forward, a couple of them repo back. I make Cask Imp run forward. Cask Imp. The Madcaps themselves advance, and they make some friends. 3 of them, to be precise. And I'm just flooding these zones up. Again, they're pretty well insulated behind that piece. I've got models that can walk forward and explode. sort of generating non-attack attacks. The Clockatrice walks up, and he boosts hit a shot at the Hermit. He does a point of damage to the Hermit, and the Hermit's paralyzed for whatever that's worth. I think you just have to start early on him. He's going to be a multi-turn, multi-attack plan, so I'm just trying to chip away while I can. Krabbits move up. Krabbit puts a Fury on it. I'm now where I want to be for Fury, pretty comfortable. The Cask Imps head forward. None of them explode, so they're able to go. Actually, it was a little bit of a riskier play than I thought. I turned to face that one in a vector that if he'd rolled a little bit more, he would have bumped the other one. But the Madcaps are able to make a few more friends. I think at this stage I have 8 Cask Imps on the board.
All right, so on my turn, I'm looking at the Nayslayers that are now fairly aggressively on my side of the table. I can start to work away at them in a significant way. That said, I'd rather RFP them if I can because of the Twilight Sisters being able to bring them back. Thankfully, with both the Boneswarms and Barney himself and snacking from the Blackhide, we've got a lot of RFP on our side of the table, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. But I want a little bit more, too. I want to rebuke one unit of Nayslayers so that they don't have options. They are very bad when they can't charge and have the Lance rule. So we want to rebuke one unit.
Yeah, their armor-piercing attack is fully tied to being able to charge.
Exactly. So if they can't charge, that's very bad for them. So we want to rebuke one unit. Okay, what else can we do? Well, if we kill a couple of Nayslayers in front of us with Barney gets some corpses. It makes him a little bit stronger for the later in the game. But if we kill the 2 Nayslayers in front of us and free a lane for Barney, then he can go up, kill the Warhorse, put a bunch of damage into the Clockatrice, Grievous wounds it, and then we'll be in a very aggressive place for later on in the game.
It's pretty exciting.
And Barney, when he's that far up and has either a Spiny Growth or Swarm up, just doesn't care. He's so hard to kill because he's either so high defense or both a combination of just high defensive stats that it doesn't really matter what comes at him. They're likely not going to be able to kill him through the combination of his defensive stats and transfers.
Yep.
So how do we make that happen? Okay, we have some chaff models that can go up and kill these Nayslayers. I think that some Bone Grinders might be able to do it. They're not a terrible mat, and the defense on Nayslayers isn't amazing. Okay, so that's not a terrible start. What else have we got? We've got this neat little play, I think, where the Hermit can go up and give everything telemetry, or give telemetry against all of these things. And we're going to nudge up a few things, because this is kind of a process in my head where I'm realizing just how useful this ability on the Hermit is. Because normally you look at that card and you think, Massive Ruin, wow, another armor debuff in basically any faction. That's amazing. But this little utility piece has so much more going for it, especially in a list like this where telemetry helps not only my caster, but helps the Cauldrons with their Spirit Lash, helps Orin with his Chain Lightning, helps
the Soul Slave?
Soul Slave with whatever he wants to spell slave at something. There's so much that +2 is affecting. It's amazing. So I move up this pot and I decide, okay, I'm going to boost to hit the clock with the pull. It's a little bit like Gallows, except it doesn't have to damage, which makes it way better.
And it's pot 12 instead of pot 13.
Sure. We hit the clock. We don't do a whole lot of damage, but we drag it a whole inch. Not ideal. I was hoping to come a little bit further, and that way the Boneswarm could go in and do a bunch of damage. And then if it wanted to port, then we could go in with Barney and take it out. But, again, not going to happen this time around. That's fine. All right. What else can we do? Replacing some road markers there.
Yeah. Talked about road markers. Forgot to put them down. They are mandatory. Road markers are down.
It's like, okay, time to clear out some of these Nayslayers. So we charge in with some Bone Grinders.
So you said these didn't have particularly remarkable defense, but with the combination of Annoyance and base defense 13, they're 14.
So if you look at the base stats of a model and ignore all modifiers, things seem good. And then when you move the models to actually roll the dice and then find out what the modifiers are, when you should have been just asking questions and paying attention, it gets much worse. So instead of clearing out these two models, we clog ourselves up even more. So Barney is never going to be able to charge onto that flag anymore now. So I guess he's just going to end up killing the two Nayslayers in front of him, like the less ideal plan we had to begin with. But
does he RFP?
He does.
So that's something, at least. He's removing those models that you care about for attrition.
Yeah. So he can do that, and he can still rebuke the enemy or the other Nayslayer unit. We have put telemetry in range of the opposite unit of Nayslayers. So on the bottom half of the table, they will be rebuked. Again, really good. They don't want to be rebuked. And then we're like, oh, but he's currently engaged and we don't want that high defense. So we're going to move Snapjaw out of the way. He can only walk, so he's going to avoid the melee range, go in and just try to eat an Nayslayer. Sure, that'll be fine. Snacking, more RFP, better for me. So we can walk in there fairly easily with avoiding the thing and without triggering a road marker, which is pretty sweet.
Smart. So Snapjaw is in range of the Grave Ghoul, so the 7 inches, so I can force a reroll, but I don't need to with the first couple of boosts.
Yeah, I boost to hit both initials, miss both of them because of Starcrossed. Last initial, buy an attack, boost to hit, out of Fury, hit, reroll from the Grave Ghoul says I miss. Instead, and Snapjaw has walked up, spent 4 Fury for nothing. Not ideal. All right.
I mean, depends on your perspective. For me, it's ideal.
Indeed. Indeed it does. So Barney can't be within 2 inches of the one Nayslayer and outside of Starcrossed. So we say screw it and just take it on the chin. He's mat 8. He should be fine here. So we attack over the wall with our bite first to take out the one providing annoyance on us. Oh, we also remember to move our little bone men.
And this is the moment where I'm like, oh, you ignore annoyance, though, because even though you're within an inch of this guy, you're not living. And Evan says, sigh.
Indeed. He is living. So he barely hits and eats the first one. Great. We have gotten rid of annoyance. And then...
And you get corpses, too, right?
We get a corpse,
Nice.
which increases our strength. Not particularly useful against Nayslayers, but hey, more things the better.
But they stay around, don't they?
Indeed.
Yeah. So you're setting up.
Getting ready for later. So we have 2 corpses on us now, and we've killed some Nayslayers. We're going to throw a rebuke out at that one. Thankfully, we just hit thanks to telemetry.
Telemetry being a bro.
Indeed.
It is worth noting that Nayslayer is defense 15 because of Fog of War, so you did need a 7 there.
Yep. Barely made it. And then we're going to Execration for 2, give everybody +2 defense, and by that I mean -2 to all your attack rolls.
Execution doesn't have like a living clause or anything too, right? It's just -2 for enemy models in 10.
Indeed. So this I thought was a great idea. I was like, okay, Orin will go, zap, kill 2 Nayslayers, do a bunch of damage to the Nayslayer Warhorse, and I'm like, okay, great. I got 3 bounces. I also hit a Twilight Sister. Don't kill the first Nayslayer. Do a point to the Warhorse or something. Don't kill the second Nayslayer. All of that's bad, but we crush the Twilight Sister.
It was the old one, too.
So completely botched the plan of clear the flag, but we killed a more important model, I guess? So this plan is just going upside down and all around. Like, not sure what we're doing now. Okay. So fun interaction that I was thinking of in this turn. I read a couple cards to make sure it worked this way, too. If I Bone Shaker a Cask Imp, it's not its normal movement when I'm just making the advance with it, so it doesn't do the random thing. But it still has the rule where if it contacts an enemy model, it explodes. So I get to just choose to walk 5 inches however I want, and if I touch a model, it explodes. So I'm probably going to do that, because that sounds great.
It does, actually.
So we move a couple things. Just Wrong Eye walks up, does some star-crossed stuff. I'm not entirely convinced he's safe where he is, but we'll work with it. This Bull Snapper charges a Nayslayer for free, eats him, torpedoes to remove the Fury. This does not RFP that model, but we do throw its corpse into the pot. Again, not RFP. Do what we can. We're like, all right, this pot can be fun. It can Spirit Lash the other Clockatrice, bring it a little bit closer, and maybe Scareth will be able to do something. So we have some more models we can use here. I think we're going to do that fun Cask Imp thing we were talking about earlier, but I want to move the Boneswarm first so that it's not engaged when I try to go do that. So we run next to the flag.
Good job, Boneswarm.
Yeah. And we do the Bone Shaker thing with the Cask Imp. Yeah. We boost. We hit him over the wall. And we go, wee.
And he walks 5 inches into a Clockatrice and explodes.
So this is pretty cool in a couple of ways. One, it's not an attack roll from an enemy model, so you don't time stutter.
Correct.
And it lights you on fire, which is great, because it's more ways to do damage to the Clockatrice without triggering time stutter.
Solid play.
Because screw that rule. So this is dice off 4. It's not a bad thing to just do. Boom. Whopping 6 damage to the 5. Perfect.
Best column to do it to.
Great. All right. What's next? Blackhide Wrastler. Gonna just stay safe. Be behind this wall.
Yeah, with Onslaught, you can charge out from behind any wall.
Yep. Be nice and good for later. Onslaught's a pretty cool spell. Depending what I want to do down in this lower zone, I still want to pull that Clockatrice forward, and I want to contest it, so I want to put Scareth in, because I think he's my best bet. Unfortunately, I think this also means that I'm leaving Dahlia a little bit open, thanks to the Cask Imps that can just kind of roly-poly into her and explode. So I'm just going to plan to not quite kill this Clockatrice and instead leave Scareth with at least 1 Fury available. Outside of the Grave Ghoul's reroll range, which is pretty sweet.
Yep. So you're able to hit. The Clockatrice is not living, so you don't paralyze it, but you do a pretty good chunk of damage, and I do manage to time stutter.
You actually time stutter forward, which I wasn't expecting, so I'm like, okay, great. Get another attack in. I won't boost, because I want that Fury to be able to transfer. But we actually continue to chunk down the clock a little bit. And you're in range for me to, move the pot and still do a boosted thing. So I don't mind that at all either. So let's talk about what some of you savvy players may have already noticed.
I'm one of the savvy players who noticed.
I did a whole lot of running models near the top of the table. None of them stepped into the enemy zone. That is because I was not quite realizing that it's the turn people can score on. And also, you need to not just protect your models, you need to contest the enemy zone, and madcaps are a unit, so they score circles. Then, also on the bottom half of this table, there was basically no way I could properly contest Rebecca's flag. So there's another point there. So I am giving up 2 points on the bottom of 2. This is a pretty classic get tunnel visioned on your plan, and then when it doesn't work, continuing to go down that plan and continuing to have it not work. Thing that I also find out this particular turn, the Wanderer has Repudiate, which means the Rebuke plan wasn't a good one to begin with. So there's a couple of ways this went wrong, as you might be able to tell. the prime way that we're going to be doing damage to Scareth here
is through Dahlia.
Is through Dahlia, because she needs to transfer or else she dies, because if she dies, Scareth kind of poofs into thin air. So that first transfer is going to do a pretty good amount of damage to the big snake. And then we're going to not have to put in so much effort when we want to kill him dead.
Yeah, poor Dahlia. I only got one of the cast imps into her. The other one didn't roll a sufficient distance. But I did put a cast imp into Scareth, and a little dice down 3 here is going to truck him
for nothing.
That's okay. We've got Nayslayers, we've got a Grave Ghoul, we've got a Clockatrice, and I really just need to kill Scareth, because at this stage I have scored 3 points.
2 points.
Pardon me, 2 points. 2 points. So what I'm looking for is an angle by which to score 3 more. My ideal 3 are the flag again, the zone again, nothing requires moving, and this zone, which requires that I kill Scareth. So the entire game and the entire plan hinges on killing Scareth here. The Wanderer moves up, repudiates an Naslayer, misses after a boost, but rerolls with a corpse.
Beacons Scareth.
Beacons Scareth to get the -2. So Nayslayers are ready to charge. Scareth is ready to be charged. Well, or not, as the case may be. And I do D3 damage to Barnabas. And we're going to see what the Nayslayers can do. Wanderer casts Starcross too, just because that's what you do when you're the Wanderer. But
force of habit, you know.
I mean, if things went really badly, and I just couldn't kill Scareth throughout the entire course of the turn, I'd want to have Starcrossed up.
Indeed.
They do +1 defense parry and annoyance. Warhorse on Scareth does a decent chunk of damage. The second Nayslayer on Scareth does an even better chunk of damage. And Scareth dies. I point at the geometry features. Evan nods reluctantly. Eyes widen a little bit. We shake hands, and that's the game.
So, I suffer so you don't have to. Remember to put models in enemy zones so that they don't score on your turn.
It's an urgent reminder a little bit that scenarios like Anarchy in the 2019 packet, first of all, can really reward capitalizing on lists that can go very wide, like this Wanderer list did. It threats really far, but it also is present really wide. And also that they kind of demand that you engage those elements really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of feels like Recon meets Spread the Net.
Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, feel free to post your thoughts on the scenario in the comments. Obviously, this is a little bit of a quicker video for you folks. Hopefully you still enjoyed it. And we shall see you next week.